honestly, the cover of my book was the biggest. What's the word? Hummingbird. Welcome back to another I Spy in July video. I am talking today about my publishing experience. I am an author, I'm a writer. It's nice to be able to share some of that stuff with you guys over this month of July, where I'm attempting a video every day. And today I am going to talk about what it was like to publish my book. If you have watched the video about my podcast, you'll know that I went into details in the podcast every episode about a different aspect of what it was like to publish my book. And I've talked a little bit about it in my writing journey video as well. But today you'll be getting a snapshot view into what it was like to publish my book, Kidnapped Entanglement, which I actually have right over there. And if you wanted to know a little bit more about it, you can check out the podcast. I'll put a link below, which goes into a lot more detail into a lot of the different aspects of what happened in going into publishing a book. So my publishing journey actually started when I realized that I wanted to publish something. I had several projects I was working on at the time, and I heard an ad on my favorite radio station where I actually had worked a little bit in previous years. And I heard about a publisher who would help you to self-publish your book. This kind of a publisher is often called a vanity publisher. I like to refer to it more so as an assisted self-publisher because that's what they're doing. They're assisting you to self-publish your book. And I pay them a fee, and they help me with things like editing and designing the cover and getting things set up and releasing the actual book and doing the launch event. And so they helped with writing support while you were going through that process and writing the book. So there was a lot of stuff that was so valuable. There was a lot that I learned about myself as a writer. There was a lot that I learned about publishing in general. And it was really important for me and my situation to have gone through this with somebody who knew what they were doing, knew what they were talking about, and we were able to come to the end of this process, and I now know a lot. I had a positive experience, and even if the book wasn't going to sell 5 million copies, I was still really proud of what we'd done and how we'd gotten there as well. So I signed up with Samantha Jansen Publishing, who published my book, or helped me publish my book. And essentially it is, we're going to help you with everything, but you own it all, and it will be totally up to you to promote it and to release it and whatever. I own all of it is essentially the gist of it all. There are pros and cons to self-publishing and traditional publishing, which I talked about in the podcast. But I decided that for my first book and for this particular story, I did want to just release it, and I didn't want to try and shop it around to agents or try and go for a traditional published route. And I also loved Samantha when I had met her, and I really wanted to go through this process with her. Unfortunately for her, it took me about 1.5 years to actually sign up. I finally signed the paperwork, and we actually started and we got going. There was a couple of different formats that my book went through. There was one where it was literally just the girl's perspective, the two women who are kidnapped and escape. It was just their point of view, and then it went through an entire big gigantic rewrite where I essentially doubled the word count, because I then gave their family back home their own point of view on this situation. It was an interesting and important part of the story, and I don't know why I just never thought of writing it. But we ended up with this doubled length book, and so there was a lot of delays, and on my part and on other people, and it was just, there was a lot of stuff that went wrong. There was COVID that happened in the middle of this publishing journey. There was a lot of stuff that we couldn't do, mostly because of COVID. Things like the launch, we had delays. I couldn't get the book format up the way that they needed it in time, because it was more complicated than I'd imagined, and it was in a different way than I had thought. And so there was all of these things that happened during this process. One of the good things for me that came out of, I'm in Victoria, Australia, and we had a substantial lockdowns in 2020. And it meant that I couldn't do my day job because I work in school photography, and we're not allowed into the schools when you're having a lockdown and schools aren't actually operating. So I had a lot of time when I just wasn't able to work. And it meant that I had a lot of time on my hands, which meant that I actually could rewrite, and completely revamp the book. So for that, I am really grateful for COVID and COVID lockdowns. But for the actual book release itself, it changed everything. It changed the way you can release a book. It changed the way people were buying if they were going to buy a book, because everyone was strapped a little bit more when it came to COVID. Not everybody had been working, especially for small businesses who had shut down. There was a lot of knock-on effects for the lockdowns and COVID and the new normal and the way that we were now going about things. Because of that, and because of the timing of that, everything in my publishing journey was different than I would have suspected, that even a year or 6 months earlier. Obviously, COVID threw everybody for a loop, but I wanted to forge ahead and I wanted to keep moving, and I didn't want to stop the train. I wanted to go for it, and I already had a February launch in mind, and I wanted to do it February 2021. So I kept going, I kept moving. We had come out of the major lockdowns by the time I released my book, and so I was able to release it. There was still restrictions on things like numbers and how many people could even come to the launch, where we could have it. So there was all of these struggles when it came to COVID and trying to release this and show people the story that I had created. Honestly, the cover of my book was the biggest struggle, I would say, that we faced. I actually almost can't believe that I'm saying those words, that the actual biggest struggle when it came to this book was the cover. The original ideas that I had were not working. Well, I wanted almost what we got. I wanted the two girls side by side. I had friends who I was going to take photos of so that it would be specific in their specific outfits that they had and things like that. So I wanted something particular. And when I took those photos, they weren't working, things weren't going the way that I wanted them to, and then I had to scramble for a brand new idea, which the communication obviously between myself and the graphic designers was not meeting. We weren't meshing together, and they weren't coming back with what I was looking for, and people were not digging the new idea anyway. And in the end, I looked at the photos that I had originally taken, and thought and stood back and went, what can I do with these that I can give them the guidelines to help me put together a cover that I'm really happy with. And my original idea to have the girls side by side ended up being split in half. So you have Jazz, and she is on the front, and then you have on the reverse side is the Megan Campbell character. Just getting the balance right for the cover, for the fonts, for everything. We went back and forth that many times that it was just really it was really surprising. It was one of the most painful parts of this process, is to get the cover right. And as much as we all say, don't judge a book by its cover, when it comes to actual books, we do. We absolutely judging a book by its cover. After a very long process of going back and forth, we settled, and I finally was happy with the design. I was happy with the cover. And that was a really major delay, and that's halted a lot of stuff. It stopped a lot of things from going and moving forward. So there's always delays when you're having a project release. There's always going to be something that goes wrong. It's never a perfect release. But yeah, there was a lot of delays, a lot of problems, a lot of issues, and a lot of things we had to work through, a lot of things I had to get sorted. And it was a way more involved and a way more complicated process than I had actually originally thought. But it was really good to go through it with somebody else. So I had Samantha and her team. Everyone was behind me. I had all the support that I needed. And without all of the work that they all did behind the scenes and all the amazing stuff that they helped out with and that they did, and all of the work that went into it, my book it wouldn't be here. And as a brand new author and somebody who didn't know, hadn't been through it before, I knew a lot of intellectual information when it came to publishing because I did my own research. Being able to do it with somebody who also cared about the end product. They cared about the book being released. They cared about it all. But it was really it's really a big milestone in my life, and it's something that I love being able to tell people. I'm a published author. I released a book. I did a book launch. I have signed books for people. It's something that really sparked my love and passion for writing, and it's something that I'm going to keep doing. And whether I do it in the same format or I do it differently, maybe I'll do traditionally published, or maybe I'll self-publish something by myself this time, or maybe I will do another assisted self-publishing. It doesn't really matter, because I had that initial experience and now I know what to expect a little bit more, and that is really important, especially if you're coming at it from a brand new person who knows nothing. So it was really, really interesting. It was really good. And with all of the delays and all the problems, there was also all of the upsides. There was the incredible support. There was the amazing experience that was the launch and seeing my book actually being printed, which was incredible. And so there are all of these amazing experiences that I had in this process, and I wouldn't have traded it to do it a different way, because I learned so much about myself as an author, about publishing a book, about all sorts of things. It was such a great experience, regardless of the challenges. So I am really happy that I did it. I'm really proud that I did it, even though it was COVID, even though there was all of these issues. I'm really, really happy that I've released my first book, and I continuing on. I'm soldiering on. We're doing more books and more things released. So I'm going to keep going with my writing journey and publish again. If you guys want to keep up to date with me and my writing and my publishing and anything to do with Kidnapped Entanglement, you can check all of my social medias out. Christy Grace Scarlet Pen, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, Christy Grace author page, and then also my blog, my website, ChristyGraceScarletPen.com. I would love for you guys to grab a copy. You can get it now on ebook or paperback format. It's cheapest to buy it from me, but you can also get it on Amazon and Koorong.com as well. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I hope that you enjoyed hearing about a little bit about my publishing journey. Again, if you want to know way more, check out the podcast, because I go into a lot more detail. It was really fun to be able to talk about this again, and I will see you guys in the adventures.